Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Phase episode 18 of How to Become a Doctor video podcast. This is run by Mr. Bowen, the director of pre-health advisors, and myself, pre-health advisor at LSU. This, of course, is to serve LSU students and alumni, but anyone else watching, we're glad you're joining in. So we're excited about our 18th episode. If you've missed the first 17, that's okay. You can go back and watch them on our YouTube channel, LSU Phase. If you don't know what Phase stands for, it's pre-health advising, support, and education. But if you're here now, or if you're watching at a later date, we're happy you're here, and we're happy to have Lindsay Klein here with us from Atlantis. If you don't know what Atlantis is, that's okay. You're about to find out. But we're definitely going to hear about some great summer opportunities, winter opportunities, other school breaks to get some unique medical experience. So, Lindsay, we'd love just for you to share a little bit about your role and a little bit about the organization, just to start.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here with you guys today. As Matt mentioned, I'm Lindsay. I'm the Director of Institutional Relations here at Atlantis. And what Atlantis is Atlantis is a study abroad opportunity that's designed specifically for pre-health students. So it's a clinical shadowing abroad in Europe. And right now we have a lot of really exciting locations for students to go in and shadow and observe in Spain, Portugal, Italy, Croatia, Malta, Greece, and we just opened a spot in Cape Verde, which is right off the northwestern coast of Africa.
Awesome. Great. A new continent.
I know, it's very exciting.
I was when I was making this Instagram post, I was like, okay, I'll put Europe because I saw the word Europe on y'all's website. I was like, but maybe they have more than that than y'all do. So that's and I was thinking about the World Cup, with like Morocco when beating Spain, Portugal, a little, a border rivalry there. That's great. So
yeah.
That's cool. Well, anyway, we'll get back into it though, away from soccer. So thanks for that little intro there. But we'd just love to hear a little bit about the history, of Atlantis. How long have you guys been around, that sort of thing, and then we can kind of get into some of y'all's opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. So this will actually be our 16th year that we started. Our very first clinical shadowing program that we ran was in Portugal, and it's tied to the name Atlantis as well. So the founder of Atlantis is from Portugal. He's from the Azores, which is the supposed mythical location of Atlantis, the lost city of Atlantis. Nice. So that's why we started in Portugal in the Azores, which is why we're called Atlantis. And so we've been running programs ever since. So it's been, like I said, 16 years of refining, getting student feedback, hearing exactly what pre-med, pre-nursing, pre-PA students are looking for in their sort of shadowing experiences and their summer experiences. And we've ended up with what we think is a really, really great program and opportunity for students.
Yeah, so I know you mentioned, a lot of different locations you guys have, on, let's just say a typical summer or your biggest summer, how many students, or a year, I should say, not just summers, how many students a year are going on these opportunities of shadowing abroad?
Yeah, so we run programs only in the winter breaks and the summer breaks. So we don't do anything during the semester. So that way everyone can focus on the coursework and the academics and all the prerequisites that you need before, applying to graduate school, medical school, PA school. And I would say on a typical year is about 2,000 students for us.
Awesome, great, yeah.
From all across the country.
Okay, awesome. So, why don't you just give us like a little, snapshot of like, a couple of these opportunities. Like I know you guys have different programs, like different lengths and such, but what does it kind of look like, I'm interested in shadowing abroad, I'm here watching this, or going to the website, like, what's this summer opportunity going to look like?
Yeah, so our standard program is 3 weeks long. And for every week of the program that a student participates in, it is 20 hours minimum of clinical shadowing in a week. I call it hands in pocket shadowing. So it's observation only. Students, you'll never be put into a position where you're having any direct patient interaction that you are not qualified as a pre-medical or pre-health student to have, which is really important to Atlantis, that we do everything based on the AAMC's guidelines for ethical international health experiences for undergraduate students. So you're spending 20 hours a week shadowing a healthcare provider. Outside of those 20 hours, we also have a cultural excursion that you can participate in every week. That ranges. Sometimes it's going to a really cool historical, museum or landmark nearby. Sometimes it's, going to a nearby beach or on a hike. So it kind of depends on the location you're in. But so for every week, 20 hours of shadowing, a fun cultural excursion, and then of course, housing is provided, a partial meal plan is provided as part of the program. Also, I think a really cool opportunity that's part of the Atlantis program is that every week you shadow a different specialty or department. So it's a mix of surgical and non-surgical specialties, but you're really not only getting to spend a lot of time every week shadowing, but you're getting to see some different types of medical opportunities as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, and it's wonderful you mentioned, AMC there, and obviously, trying to hit some of their core competencies and all that. So, so obviously a student, they're interested, they go participate in your program, get to do the shadowing, overseas experience. But, how does that translate to applying to medical school, applying to another professional school? Like, what is it that they can write about after their time there, that just like the skills they gain, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so one of the things that we talk about a lot is, it helps create your story for your application, right? So it gives you some really concrete experiences that you can refer to. It gives you a really good comparative perspective on healthcare systems too. So, one of the things that I hear a lot from pre-med students, from pre-health students, is that they're interested in improving healthcare, access to healthcare. So then to be able to say, I went over to, let's say, Portugal, and they have a universal healthcare system. And in interacting with this doctor, I realized that here are the challenges that are present in a universal healthcare system as compared to the system we have in the US. And here's what works better. So I think being able to demonstrate in your application sort of this kind of critical look at healthcare systems, the practice of, and provision of healthcare, I think is really important and is a way to sort of set yourself apart in those kinds of applications.
Yeah, well. I mean, like, it's amazing. I didn't really think about that as much of, obviously, seeing the medicine side, and, a human is a human. So that's the neat part, if they speak a different language, but then the governmental side, and insurance side and leadership side and facility side of medicine, getting that different cultural experience, that's definitely unique. So, okay. So when, obviously I know you guys have a lot of programs, but like what, when do you maybe start offering them in the summer versus the last one? When are they offered in the winter? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so we have multiple start dates that are pretty consistent across all of our different country sites. The first one is going to be in mid-May. Woo, I can't even talk today. In mid-May, and our standard program length, like I mentioned, is 3 weeks. So if you start in mid-May, the second program will start beginning of June. The next one will start 3 weeks after that. So we tend to have 4 different start dates throughout the summer, beginning in mid-May. The last program start date is usually in the beginning of August, and then we'll wrap up sort of the 3rd week of August. So there's multiple start dates across.
Yeah, great. No, that's helpful. And then the winter one, is that just at one time, or?
Yeah, so we actually tend to have 2. So one will be in December prior to the holiday. So usually, mid-December, say December 10th-ish. And then we'll last 2 to 3 weeks. And then we'll also run programs again in January.
Okay.
So starting the first week of January. So the idea is that you can either, go right after the fall semester, right before the spring semester begins.
So how big are these teams of students that are going on each trip?
Yeah, so our standard program is about 10 to 12 students. In some of our bigger city locations like Madrid or Barcelona, we might work with multiple hospitals. So then, we could accept up to 20 students, but it'll still be 10 students assigned to a hospital. So the reason we do that is based on student feedback that we've gotten over the course of our years of operation. But also we really try to make sure that the ratio of students to physicians or healthcare providers is 2 students to one healthcare provider, so that you're getting kind of a really up close and personal look at what it means to be a health care provider in those countries. So in order to maintain that sort of ratio, we keep our program sizes pretty small.
Lindsay,
Right.
can you,
Okay.
Lindsay, can you, so can you talk a little bit about the housing? Like how is the housing done, and like on ground there, who's there on ground to help you?
Yeah, absolutely. So housing, again, varies a little bit from program to program, but it's always going to either be in an apartment style, hotel style, or dorm style residence. So we don't do homestays at all. It's always going to be 2 students to 1 room based on gender identity. And it's always going to be with another Atlantis student. So a student who's on the Atlantis program, you're never staying with, a random university student or something like that. We always choose housing that's in a safe location, that's clean, that's close to where you'll need to be for the hospital shadowing. So those are sort of the factors we take into consideration. And then for every program, we have a city manager. And so that's somebody who's local to that country, who's on call kind of 24/7 with an Atlantis program. So students meet them in their pre-departure orientations, but they're the ones who are arranging your cultural excursions, group meals, making sure students are getting to and from the hospital every day, that you're getting tied into the right departments, that you know where you're going. They're kind of like your go-to person for the duration of the program.
So, obviously this is a great opportunity. We just kind of from our side, definitely getting that medical experience, also just the cultural competency. So, really unique. And obviously, it looks like there's still some time to plan a trip if they want to go this summer. So that's great. And we'll definitely refer them to your website at the end here. But, obviously, we know there are some costs that come to these programs. And so we'd love just for you to share, obviously you don't have to give the full details of every little cost, but kind of the general cost but how students end up meeting those costs from different funding sources.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, our programs range the fees depend where you're going. And we have a couple different tiers, but I would say a program for this summer right now is going to range anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000. And what's included in that program fee is the lodging. It's a partial meal plan. So that's breakfast every day, 3 group meals, so 2 dinners and a lunch. The lunch is part of the cultural excursion, which is also included in the program fee. And then obviously all of the logistics around the clinical shadowing are taken care of as well. Any transportation that's required as part of the scheduled Atlantis programming, so getting to and from the housing in the hospital, and any transportation required for the cultural excursion, that's all included in the program fee as well. The program fee also includes international health insurance for every participant. So essentially what's not included are any meals that aren't part of the meal plan. So that's most of your lunches and a few dinners, and then international airfare. So those are the big expenses. Weekends are free for students to travel and explore a little bit on their own. So any kind of costs that are incurred as part of that would also be not included in the Atlantis fee.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've heard of creative ways that students, fund this. So what are maybe some ideas, obviously outside of the normal ones,
Yeah, the normal ones being, checking with LSU and talking with the study abroad office to see what scholarships are available. There are some national scholarships that are available as well for students who are participating in study abroad programs. So we always encourage students to check through that. We also have a fundraising guide that we share with students too, and talk a little bit about how the process of fundraising for a trip like this helps develop some skills that you can also talk about in your medical school application or your PA school application, and sort of how those kind of help you grow and develop. And then we also have a couple different financing options that are available to students as well. Sort of as a little insider tip here. Right now, we offer weekly webinars for students. where they're hosted by our alumni. So it's a really great opportunity to hear about the student experience, ask questions from students who have gone on the programs this past summer, some who went on the programs this last winter. And by attending one of those webinars, we actually have a $300 flight credit that students are eligible for.
Awesome.
So if you just Google search, join Atlantis webinar, you'll find a link to sign up, but they're held every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So that's another option for students to kind of get a little bit towards the program as well.
Yeah, no, and I love that fundraising piece because, it's like while you're a student, it's your last time, you can get someone to say, hey, come sponsor me. I'm just learning. And then once you get in the workforce, it's like, nah, you're supposed to pay for that yourself. So yeah, that's what I meant by creative. My leading question was, I know a lot of students fundraise in a lot of different ways, whether it's a bake sale or asking around or whatever they do, so that's great. And but like you said, there are a lot of opportunities, and I know you guys walk them through the process with that. So that's great. So okay, well, so let's say someone's convinced and they want to apply. What does it look like to apply to the program? Like, what are some of the requirements? What does the application look like? That kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a very straightforward application process. So if you go to our website, joinatlantis.com, you will see an apply now button. And so you can apply. We ask you to fill out an online application. It shouldn't take you more than 10 to 15 minutes. It's just asking some basic information, asks you sort of why you're interested in healthcare, how Atlantis will kind of fit into that journey for you. And then also, just some details about what types of programs you're interested in. We have a couple different program types in addition to the clinical shadowing. So students can work on a research project, or they can, look at different options. So it'll ask you what your interest in those are. And then the second part of our application process is actually scheduling an interview with one of our alumni. So this interview is very informal. It's about half an hour long, and it's a chance for students to ask the alumni questions, for alumni to get to know the applicant a little bit and make sure that Atlantis is a good fit. But it's not meant to be a stressful process or,
Right.
Through an application or an interview, but really just a chance to make sure that Atlantis is a good fit.
So like how long is the turnaround if someone applies to a program if they find out if they're accepted?
Yeah, so it really, the biggest time constraint is just finding a time that will work to meet with an alumni. So we have a huge team of alumni who are ready and willing to talk with people, but it is a busy season. So as soon as you are able to submit the application and have the interview, you usually receive your sort of acceptance offer within 24 hours of that interview. So I would say right now, a student could probably expect a 2-week turnaround maximum, but it could be less than that.
So, and if students are interested in going like with a group of friends, that you guys can accommodate, putting them together in the same trips?
Yeah, we can try to. It sort of depends, again, on how big the group of friends is, what site they're willing to go to.
Right.
But if students are all interested in going to, say, I'm trying to Malta. Let's say we'll all go to Malta, which is a small island right off the coast of Italy. So if everyone wants to go to Malta, I would say submit an application, look at the program dates, and then in those conversations with the Atlantis alumni, let them know that there are other students, how many of them there are who are trying to go. It's very, very common that we'll have like 2 or 3 people who are all interested in going to the same program. When you receive your offer letter too, you'll be able to choose the dates that students want to go. So that's another way. There's a couple different points. But if that's something that students are interested in, we definitely encourage you just to be upfront about that when you're speaking with the Atlantis alumni.
Right. Yeah. A group of friends. I was thinking small. I wasn't thinking like, you need 20 friends. But yeah, I was thinking, 2, 3, 4. But that's, like I said, I know some people like to travel in pairs, and I'm sure you guys do what you can to accommodate that. So okay, well, great. Well, I know you talked a little bit about, the online seminar, and, I can pull your website up here too for for people to see. But, what's kind of the best ways to connect with you guys? What are some of the different avenues they can connect with you?
Yeah, so there's lots of ways. There's a chat feature on the website there where you can ask questions. There's also I believe there's a contact us option. On the top right, you'll see the apply now button, which will take you to the Atlantis application. There's a quiz that you can take too that kind of says, is this for you?
Nice.
So there's a lot of different options as far as connecting. And we'll get you connected with the right person too, depending on what your question is. We have a team that's dedicated to answering email questions as well.
Yeah, you have an Instagram too, right? Let's join Atlantis.
Join
Right?
Atlantis.
Okay. And then how about you? If they want to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
The best way is my email, which is Lindsey, LINDSEY.K at joinatlantis.com. And I am, of course, always happy to be a resource and to talk to students and make sure that this is a good fit for them and to connect them in with our admissions team as well. Just a fun fact for students, before I joined Atlantis, I worked for a medical school. So I'm very passionate about our programs and love the chance to kind of talk with students about why I think they're important from that perspective as well.
Yeah. So, obviously I asked all the questions today, so there's probably some things maybe you feel like you didn't get to share or something that I didn't ask about. So is there anything else, maybe you'd want an LSU student to know about the program that we maybe haven't covered yet?
I think we've hit a lot of the highlights. I think the one frequently asked question that I get a lot, because we have so many different countries that we work in, we don't have any foreign language requirements for students. So you'll never be expected to speak English or Spanish or Portuguese as part of your participation. We always work with physicians, healthcare providers, our Atlantis staff all speak English. So that's kind of a frequently asked question that I always like to make sure I cover.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Rob, you have any other questions?
Yeah, I was just, as a college student, trying to talk to your parents about going to a trip like this. I'm sure parents are have questions about safety and things like that. So how do you communicate that information with maybe donors who might be the parent who might be willing to pay for this, but they have questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of have two ways. The first is we actually have a whole section of our website that's dedicated specifically to parents. I think the page title is For Parents. And so it addresses some of those concerns. And then anyone from Atlantis, whether it's an Atlantis alumni who's working with you on your application, or I am certainly happy to talk to parents as well. We're all happy to answer anybody's questions, whether it's a student's, whether it's a parent's, anything like that. And that's very common, I will say.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of specialties, but what are some of the common specialties in a 3-week trip that students get to see?
Yeah, they'll get to see at least one sort of surgical specialty. So that could be a general surgery, or we have neurosurgery and cardiothoracic surgery as well. We have radiology, pediatrics, gastroenterology is a pretty common one as well. Again, the availability sort of depending on which program at what time you're going on. But as part of Atlantis's sort of process is that you're also able to list a preference for specialties, and then we'll do everything we can to try to accommodate those as well.
Okay, right. So, obviously the language barrier, how does that exactly work out? If you're in Spain and the ticket in Spanish and it's a pediatric visit, what does that look like for the students?
Yeah, so a lot of the translation comes from the physician that they would be shadowing, as far as explaining what is going on or the interaction. I also always think it's important to observe and pick up on nonverbal cues too, especially when there's a language barrier, because that's so much of developing and understanding the relationship between healthcare provider and patient too. It's not only what's being said, but how it's being said, and noticing some of those sort of more subtle cues that might come up as well. But the physician, again, has volunteered their time to be there. They understand that students might not have that language capability, and are happy to kind of walk them through what's going on and what happened in that interaction.
Awesome. Great.
Are all of your experiences 3 weeks? Like if a student wanted to do longer, could they, or is that it's just they're all 3 weeks?
So the standard is 3 week. You can kind of combine programs. So you can do a program in Spain and a program in Italy.
Okay.
That would be 6 weeks. And we do occasionally, just because of scheduling, have some programs that are 1 or 2 weeks long. And you can combine those with like a 3-week program as well. So you could go to as long as a program as 9 weeks. I would say 3 weeks is our most common. 6 weeks is probably the next most common from that. And that's a really cool opportunity too, to be able to see multiple countries, multiple healthcare systems, multiple sort of approaches to healthcare, I think is a really great thing to be able to do.
Awesome. Well, look, I know we didn't cover it all, but glad you guys have a website and you're willing to hear from students. And, you guys obviously have a unique opportunity here. So, definitely, no, it's not for everybody, but I think, definitely many students would at least be interested in hearing more about it. So, thank you just for your time today. And like anyone watching this, if you have any questions, definitely reach out to Lindsay or, go on their website, take the quiz. But thanks again, Lindsay, for joining us. And, I hope the students can benefit from this.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me. And hopefully we'll see lots of LSU students on our trips this summer.
Yeah,
that's right. Okay, thanks.
Thanks.